since you clicked on this vid, I guess you want to get some book recommendations for, some what to read after you finish watching Twin Peaks. Not sure if there's ever going to be another season of that, but you want to keep that kind of magic alive. And I think that reading books is a way to do that. So I've picked a few, which I think capture that kind of a certain kind of quality that you get when watching Twin Peaks. There's small town atmosphere, maybe there's a forest involved, a kooky cast of characters, that kind of thing. And then also I've tried to pick books with similar kind of themes. So like a kind of metaphysical, dreamlike quality is something that I'm looking for. Lynch sort of captures these harsh realities and then sort of sprinkles in these terrifying unknowns. Symbolism, a little bit of spirituality, a little bit of supernatural elements, adds a bit of spice. So I think these books that I've picked capture that kind of feeling and essence that is what I enjoy from Twin Peaks and David Lynch movies. So stick around and let's get started. Okay, so the first book I want to talk about, I'll put the picture here, is Death in Her Hands by Ottessa Moshfegh. So this is the book that inspired me to make this video. I loved it, 5 out of 5 stars for me. And I think it's not that well rated overall. I think you probably either love it or hate it. I think you need to go into it not expecting a normal kind of story. A lot of it takes place it's very stream of consciousness. You're following her internal journey. It's unreliable narrator, so you don't know what's going on just inside her head, what's going on in the real world. And I think it gets a little bit metaphysical, maybe metafictional as well. Follows a character named Vesta Gull, and the story kicks off with her. She's just moved to a new small town and she's got this big forested backyard. And when she's walking her dog one day, she finds a note in the forest saying something like, her name was Magda, here's her dead body. But there's no dead body anywhere to be found. So it becomes this kind of mystery that she is trying to solve. But since there's no body and no murder, she doesn't go to the police. She sort of writes her own sort of murder mystery narrative around this note. And it sort of, and like at the beginning, it kind of got me thinking like, oh no, it's like it's not a real story if it's just within the character's own mind. But then I got to thinking like, that's what a book is this what the author is thinking up. So it just adds another layer of it's what this character is thinking up. So that sort of gave me this strong we live inside a dream vibe, like, but who is the dreamer? Is it the author? Is it the character? What exactly is real? And does it matter? I don't know where I'm going with this. So it gets progressively, you learn more about the character Vesta, and you learn more about through what she is projecting onto this character Magda. And what starts off as this sort of sympathetic, normal-ish seeming old lady. She's a widow, she becomes more unhinged and a lot darker as the story goes on, as she comes across these characters in this town that she lives in. It sort of melds with her perception of reality. And it's all centered around this murder mystery. So like Magda's kind of like Laura Palmer in a way, but just the idea of that Laura Palmer. And I just thought it was a really, really cool story, and maybe give it a try. It's not exactly like Twin Peaks, of course, because nothing can be, but it definitely gave me that same sort of feeling, and it's kept me thinking about it long after I finished reading the book. So that's number 1. So the second book that I want to recommend to you today is a book called Fever Dream, and I have a copy right here. So this is a really great, another short little book. I read this in about 2 hours, and I just flew through it because it was just so dramatic. Like, there was so much tension. It was so cool, oogie spooky vibes for sure. So this one, the narrative is really, it's told in a really kind of unique way. We've got this character, I think her name is Amanda, and she's in a hospital bed recounting the events of the past few days as to how she got into this hospital bed. Who she's recounting this to is a boy named David, and on the back it says, "A boy named David sits beside her. She is not his mother. He's not her child." So you're discovering like who he is and their relationship to each other. And this one gave me some definite David Lynch vibes. For one, because the boy's name is David, and I kept picturing David Lynch's son in Twin Peaks when he's playing that little boy. He's pretty creepy, so I just pictured that kid who she was talking to as that kid. Yeah, so as she's recounting the story to David, she's going through all these details, and it seems like David knows what's going on, and why, and he has the answers, and he's directing her through the story, saying, "No, that's not important. Focus on something else," and then or that is important. Keep talking about that. Focus on that. So he's got this sort of otherworldly presence, which I found very creepy, but very interesting to read, that kind of dynamic. Tie it back into Twin Peaks. So Twin Peaks has a lot of that supernatural, Black Lodge, White Lodge, sort of in between spaces that are quite surreal. There's a bit in this book where she's in this kind of waiting room, and it's supposed to be the waiting room of the hospital, but it's very dark, and it gave me that kind of surreal, not quite right. I don't think that they're on the same dimension as us, possibly. It's just, and maybe that was just my interpretation of it. This is obviously open for interpretation. But that gave me like a very surreal Lynchian kind of vibe as well. But yeah, this book, I'm trying to be vague. I don't want to give away any of this because I feel like with horror, you don't want anything to be spoiled too much. So I'm just going to keep the plot very vague, and I hope you pick it up and discover these Lynchian vibes for yourself. So the next book I'm going to talk about today is, of course, this one, House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski, and it is very unique. It is an experience. There's nothing quite like it. It even references David Lynch, so I think it was definitely inspired by Twin Peaks and David Lynch's work. So David Lynch is, of course, a very visual person. He uses a lot of symbols, and I think that this book is the closest in that it uses a lot of symbols. A lot of the page formatting is very, it's out there. Let me try and find an example of some crazy, just like a lot of creative formatting as the book just gets more and more disorienting, and that reflects, so the visual experience of the book reflects what's going on in the story. There is, of course, the many different layers within the book. So what it's about a house and a family that lives there, and they find a corridor in their house that is bigger on the inside. It defies sort of logic, and that it's sort of a portal that leads somewhere else within their house, and they film this documentary about it. And then the book itself is from another character's perspective, and he's sort of writing about this documentary that he's watching, and he'll put his own interpretation on that. And then it's from another person's perspective who's found that manuscript, and he's transcribing it, and then he adds his own diary sort of entries in the footnotes of that. And his perspective, his life is sort of takes over as well, where it seems like it's completely different from what's going on in the story, but there's like an interplay, and how much he's affected by the story, and it's very cool. It's very cool. I don't think I'm doing any justice with describing it, but if you love Twin Peaks, I think that you'll, and like the part of Twin Peaks where you want to analyze and keep thinking about it, and I think you'll get a real kick out of this, because there's a lot to discover and read into it, and I probably will reread it again one day, just so that I can sort of go into it with more knowledge and understanding. I think definitely give it a try. For the last book, I want to give an honorable mention to this one. It's called The Houseguest by Amparo Davila. So this book was published in 2018, but it's a collection of short stories. I think they were published in like a range of from the 50s to the 80s. It is translated as well, so I couldn't pinpoint when the original untranslated ones were published compared to this one. But I think that these stories are really quite Lynchian in some respects, but they're all very dark and a bit spooky. I wouldn't say like very scary, not quite horror, but there's definitely a mood that they evoke, which sort of, I think that the stories get stronger as you get towards the end of the book. Some of my favorite ones are sort of the last few that are in there. There's just two of them which I think would count as being sort of Lynchian if you wanted to check it out. So the first one is called End of a Struggle. So this one, it's about a man who comes across his doppelganger with a blonde woman who's not his wife. And so he sort of becomes obsessed with finding them and following them. So this one gave me Lost Highway sort of comparisons in my mind. And I thought it was very, very, very cool where the story ended up. And it's just a few pages long, so I don't want to say too much and give anything away at all. And the next one that I wanted to just point out, where is it? It's called The Breakfast, and it's about a girl who comes downstairs and she seems really bothered by this dream that she had. And she describes what happens. She goes to her boyfriend's house and is describing what happens, and things get quite dark. Again, it's only a few pages long, so I don't want to give anything away. So that's why I just gave this one an honorable mention if you wanted to just check out a cool sort of classic spooky collection. This one's been sort of blurbed by Carmen Maria Machado, who wrote Her Body and Other Parties and In the Dream House. And you can tell that this book sort of influenced hers, and sort of gives me like Shirley Jackson vibes as well. So if you really like sort of horror written by female authors, and especially translated works, I think definitely give this one a little look-see. Okay, so that's all the books that I wanted to recommend today. I've got a few more books that I think might be Lynchian or Twin Peaks-ish that I'm going to read hopefully pretty soon. So I think I'll probably want to make a part 2 to this at some stage. Please let me know if that's something that you want to see, if you're interested in that. Please let me know if you've read anything that you think feels like Twin Peaks or Lynchian at all. I'll be very interested to know that. Please leave a comment. Like this video if you want to see more, and subscribe if you want to see any more videos from me in the future. This is my first video. It was pretty daunting to get started and actually do this, but I tried finding, I typed into YouTube books like Twin Peaks and I couldn't find anything, so I thought that I should be the first one. You know, make the videos that you wish to see, I guess. So I hope you like that. Yeah, like, comment, and subscribe and all that stuff, you know. Ooh. Yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.